Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Happy Thursday, friends. I am so excited to introduce you to today's Turquoise Talk guest. I have been hanging out over on LinkedIn a little bit. And if you're over there, come find me at Martine Williams. Say hello, send me a message. But I've been meeting some just incredible women on LinkedIn, and I wanted to have several on to the podcast. And so today's guest is Dana Lewis. A little bit about Dana. She is a stress specialist and nutrition hacker. Dana is the host of the Stop Faking Fine podcast. Y'all, that alone, Stop Faking Fine. If we could just stop doing that, we're going to talk about that today. But her customized coaching programs, workshops, and speaking engagements focus on stress management, mindset mastery, and your microbiome. Dana was nearly overcome with grief when her husband and father of three sons died a month after he was diagnosed with cancer in 2013. She learned how to stop faking fine by making simple, sustainable changes in daily habits that lead to major improvements in the quality of life. Dana is also a contributor to the best-selling book, and then she bounced back. And that's exactly what she has done. And I love that she just was willing to come on the podcast today and share her faking fine story. I think we can all relate to that phrase. Like when people say, how you doing? You're like, fine, I'm fine, right? Like we're faking fine. And y'all know, if you've been following me for any amount of time, I'm a big supporter of like, let's just go ahead and take the masks off. Like it's okay that you're not okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. And one of the ways that we start down that road to recovery from grief or recovery from faking fine is just to take the mask off. And so I am so excited for you to meet Dana. She is just as beautiful on the outside as she is on the inside. And you're going to love this conversation. So let's do this, friends. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. I'm your host, Martine Williams, your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer, and I'm so excited for today's Turquoise Talk guest, Dana Lewis, to come on and talk about faking fine. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but that was really what the draw was for me when I first met her, just to hear like faking fine, like how many of us are faking fine. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh my gosh, Martine, I'm so excited just to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and let's have some turquoise talks.
Yes, for sure. So tell us a little bit about you, your family, and how because I think I remember you were in corporate and now you're an entrepreneur. So can you kind of share just some of your story, all of your story? Let's just hear it all. How about that?
Let's go way back in the time machine.
Yes.
I would love to. Like, what a great question. Where do I start? Faking fine. Let's start there. So I exited the corporate world after having my third child because my husband had a career on fire, executive, and we were moving every 2 years, and two people cannot have corporate careers while you're moving around and you have three small children. So right. I was thrilled to stay home, because we all know that is a huge job in and of itself, and support my husband and really be with my kids. And I enjoyed every moment of it. We moved, our last move, I'm originally Midwestern from Michigan, and we moved to Connecticut, we moved to Seattle, and then we reside in Virginia. And we were only supposed to be in Virginia for 2 years. And about the time that we were thinking about where we were going to go, because the 2 years was up, he died with a super quick battle with cancer. He became sick in July. We actually never was sick. He just had a fever that we couldn't figure out what it was coming from. And what we came to recognize is that it was a tumor growing around his kidney. And we recognized that in July of 2013. And in August of 2013, he died from cancer. So
Wow.
faking
Wow.
fine was birthed out of that experience. At the time of, back in 2013, our boys were 6, 8, and 10. And I remember coming home from the hospital, like, am I on candid camera? Like, did that actually just happen?
Yeah.
Like, remember that show where people would like
Yes.
pop out and like,
Yes.
surprise, we're just kidding.
Yes. Yes.
I felt like for at least a year that was my reality. Like at one moment, someone was gonna, pop out from behind the sofa and say, surprise, we're just kidding.
Right.
And I mean, to say that rocked my world is the biggest understatement. There's no words to really frame that. So it's 2013. I have 3 boys that are 6, 8, and 10. And I live in a place where I only intended to be for 2 years.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, all right, well, what's next? Surviving is what's next. How are we going to survive? And I think, we get along so well, Martine, because we're doers. We're going to get up and we're going to shake the world and we're going to make things happen. So I wasn't about to fall on my sword and have, the victim mentality. I was like, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to, make these boys breakfast. I'm going to put everything that I can to step my best foot forward and show up for both parents. And I did that for year after year after year. And what I didn't realize is that I was silently drowning in stress and overwhelm. I was unwilling. I don't even know if I was unwilling to admit it to myself or I didn't recognize it. You know what I mean? It's such a fine line when you're a doer and you're doing the things and you're unwilling to not do the things. But at the same time, I was miserable. I like missed my husband. I was grieving his loss, trying to take care of, I was taking care of 3 kids, and I am super proud that we, have an amazing family dynamic and everything kind of, turned out. But in the crux of that, I got lost, like as a person, and where the Stop Faking Fine podcast came from is that one day I just had an epiphany where I was like, I am literally listening to what everyone else is like. Oh, you're a widow. And when you think of the word widow, I don't know, where does your brain go? Like when you think of the word widow, who do you envision?
Someone sad.
Or someone like, for me, it was someone, yes, sad, but also elderly, like more seasoned.
Yes, for sure.
More seasoned. I was 40 when he died. And so I didn't really know what box I fit in. Like how am I supposed to interact? Like, I don't really know. What am I supposed to do? And I found myself listening to everything that everyone else said, like, oh, you should this, you should that, you should move home, you should get a job, you should yada, yada. And I talk about it on the podcast. Like the funniest part of the whole thing is they were like, you should get a dog. Like your boys need a dog. Dana, you should get a dog. And like everybody kept telling me that I needed a dog. And Martine, like the funniest part about it is that like I got a dog and I didn't just like go to the, SPCA and pick out a dog. I was like, oh, I'm going to get myself a bougie dog. I'm going to get like a purebred, blah, 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 blah. I brought this dog home. And this is like the moment where I recognized, like real life moment that I recognized that I was like taking in and to heart too much of what everyone else was telling me to do, because I'm sitting on the front porch, like waiting for this puppy to go to the bathroom. Meanwhile, I'm late for my life. Like I'm late for, I've always taught like group fitness classes and I was like going to be late to my class, late to other things. And I sat there and I was like, I do not want this dog. Like, this is not my best yes. Like, this is not like, what am I doing? And so I had signed an agreement with the breeder that if anything were to happen, she wanted the dog back. So like, long story short, I had the dog for like a week. gave the dog back, and I was like, Jesus, this is not my best life. Like, help me.
Yeah.
Like, what can I do? And that was just a really like pivotal moment for me to recognize that I was really falling into the trap of people pleasing. I mean, I call it like the should do's, but listening to the thoughts and opinions of other people and putting too much weight on it and not putting enough weight on what Jesus has put on your heart. Like, cause you know who you're called to be and what you're called to be. But I feel like I was living in such a state of overwhelm and busy that I couldn't quiet my own brain.
Yeah. 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 Well, and that's why it says be still, right? Cease striving. You know, that's what the verse is about. Cease striving. And when you're a high achieving person, naturally, which you are, and I am too, that's a really hard thing to obey sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's a reason, right? That he makes us lie down in green pastures. At least it's green pastures he's making us lie down. And it's not lying down in the dry, the dry lands. But the people pleasing is real. And the people that were telling you all these things, I think people are so uncomfortable, right? Sometimes when they're trying to help a friend through a hard time and they say things either they don't mean to say or they have no like context of what you're feeling on the inside. They just see on the outside and they're like, oh, well, this will make her feel better. And so they have really great intentions. But I love when you said it just wasn't your best yes. There's a lot of things we can say yes to. And there's a lot of things we should be saying no to, but it's just figure out for you what your best yes is. And that takes time.
100%. It takes time. And it takes the stillness of listening to your own heart. And that takes, I think, confidence. Yeah. So when you're not confident in what you feel in your heart, and at this time, I mean, this is 7, 8, 9 years ago for me, I was confident in being Mrs. Jason Lewis. And I was confident in being the mom to these 3 boys as part of a family. And at the time, I didn't have a career that I was confident, you know what I mean, in showing up and doing that. I was kind of like, the rug literally got pulled out from under my feet and I have to figure out who I am. And that takes time, stillness, and confidence. And for me, and I know now that I am not the only one, or if you feel this, if you're listening, if you feel this, like give us a virtual fist bump, because when you're in that season, it is easier to listen to what other people have to say. It's easier to fill your days with busy and not get still and get quiet. And I remember during that season, I was so overwhelmed and just kind of emotionally exhausted that I would sit down with my Bible and I would try to read it. And I would read like the same sentence over and over and over. And I was like, I don't even know what I read. Like, I don't like, I couldn't comprehend because my brain was just running on overload. Like I was running a million miles an hour, but I couldn't calm my brain enough to lean in to listen. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, it's when you're used to going all the time, like that's just the mode you've been in. It is really hard to get quiet and get still. And I also think that, like you said earlier, it's easier sometimes just to stay busy than to sit and deal with what you need to deal with. It's not fun, you know, to look at yourself in the mirror and ask some of those hard questions and to feel the emotions that you're trying to push down because they don't feel good, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Like pushing them down. I did a podcast episode on like the beach ball that you just like keep stuffing down and stuffing down. And it's like, it's a beach ball because it eventually is going to pop up. And when it pops up, which is, you know, kind of what happened for me with this dog, when it pops up, it's like a whole cascade of other things. Now I've got this dog that I tell my kids that I'm returning. Everyone around me is like, you are the most evil person on the planet. Who returns a dog? And I'm like, you know what?
I don't really care right now.
I don't care at all. And that decision was the best yes, or the best obedient decision that I could have done, because I knew in my heart that that wasn't right for me. And when everyone was saying, you should get a dog, I didn't do like the math to realize, well, that's more time on me.
Yeah.
more effort on me, more money to take care of on me.
Yeah.
I already have these issues stacking up where I'm the only one taking care of three, small children. I am the only one financially responsible for my household now. And now I've just added to that. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This is absolutely not what I need.
But when you're so clouded, when it's so foggy, you can't see clearly, right? You can't see what your next yes is or what your needs are. You really are just like, okay, some information came in, sounds good. Let's just move.
I'm going to execute.
I'm just going to execute it until you're like, I can't execute anymore and this dog's got to go.
That is like literally what happened. And then like some of my neighbors, like a couple days later, were like, oh, where's that cute puppy? I've not seen you sitting on the front porch, like waiting for her to like go to the bathroom. And I was like, is she gone? Like, I'm here and she gone. And you want to see people like look at you like they can't, like the faces, like when I would say like she's gone or I gave her back to the breeder, they would look at me like I had three heads.
Yeah.
Like,
what? I know. Well, because they see animals, which they are, if they're like a therapy dog, or they see it as a way, like give you some companionship and all of that. But again, it's just people's way of trying to help, but not having context. So what it is that you need, and you didn't have any context because you didn't know what you needed at the time.
Right. And I think I think that brings up like a whole nother conversation about like grief and widows. And part of like, I think what got me to the place of just overwhelm and listening to whatever anyone had to say is when people interacted with me, it was always a shade of weird, and not in a bad way, because I know that everyone has a really good heart and wants to say the right thing, but no one knows what to say.
Yeah.
And in like, I remember like in the year after Jason passed, people would come over to, chat or check up on me, and they would end up snot-nosed crying at my front door, like chatting with me. And I found myself consoling them. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be strong for myself and my children. Now I have to be strong for you. Like,
you're like, get it together, people. I'm the one who needs help here, not you. It's so true, because people hurt so much for you,
Yes.
they see your pain, they feel your pain. And especially someone like me, I'm very empathetic. And so I literally take people's pain. So I have to be really, like, all the stuff that's going on in the news right now, I can't watch it. I really legit cannot watch it because I take it on so personally, and it just seeps into my being, and it's just not good for me. So we have to know our boundaries on that too, Yeah.
We have to know our boundaries and know, like, I remember being really frustrated with God right after, because everyone wants to share, like, God will only give you what you can handle. And I'm like, well, that is a crop, because like, who said that I could handle this? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. And
that was that's a whole nother journey that you have to work through.
Yeah. Yeah.
That takes time, effort, and confidence. Like, I just am going to come back to that. It takes the time, it takes the effort, and it takes you being still, but being confident in what's on your heart. And it's easier to be mad and be busy.
It is. It really is. Then you don't have to do any investigation. Then you don't have to move forward. And for me, like when I've found myself in hard situations, nothing like what you have gone through, but it's like, once you name it and once it's out there, then you got to do something with it. But if you fake fine, you don't have to do anything with it.
You don't have to do a darn thing. You just keep telling yourself life is good. Yeah. Life is good. Like, if the house is on fire behind you, but you're like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
No, you're not good. You're not good. And you need to address it. And I'll use the word you with air quotes as like me. I was like, I need to address things. Like, I am straight up. I've become the queen of faking fine. I'm like the role model for like, who wants to fake fine? Follow my lead.
I can give you the roadmap.
Can give you all the tips. Download my blueprint for faking fine.
Well, and the truth is, there is someone listening right now who is in that season. They are faking fine, and they're getting ready to go into the holiday season or whenever this show airs. And it doesn't really matter when that is. There's always a season where you feel like you have to just, especially if you're someone who's the strong one, perceived as the strong one and perceived as the encourager. It's like you're always pouring out to others and you don't allow yourself to just not be fine. Right. So
there's no time for that. Like there's no time for not being fine. So it's like, keep going, keep going, keep going. But there will become a time where you just can't do it anymore. Or that you recognize that you're not giving your best. Yes. For me, it also came kind of hand in hand, like with the dog, but also with my kids being like, mom, you're nice to everyone. And then you come home and you're so mean. And I was like, what? I was like, what?
Whoa, yeah.
I'm so mean. What do you mean? And it was straight up that I had no patience. So it was like, I have given all of my time, energy, and talents to all of these superficial things during the day. Like to the PTA, to the, volunteering at school, to the showing up, doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing to be a good mom, blah, 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 blah. And then I come home and it's like, I don't have time. So it's like, oh, you spilled your milk. Well, I'm like, pick it up. Right. Grab this, grab that. Just like, I mean, not mean, but like short, like short fused because you don't have the bandwidth. Like we only have, you only have so much capacity and you have to really be protective of what you give that to. And like, as a single parent, I'm like, okay, well, I have to do all of these things. But how do you show up with grace through that? So that's kind of my mission for today.
Yeah. Hey, mompreneur friends, 'tis the season, right? To juggle it all, business, family, and festivities. Well, guess what? I have an ultimate gift just for you, a free resource to design the holiday that is successful and less stressful. So what will you say and feel like at the end of the holidays? Will you be excited about all the memories made while still running your business, or will you be filled with regret? You get to decide. So I want to encourage you to go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to martinewilliams.com/holiday list and grab your stress-free holiday toolkit. Inside, you're going to find a holiday season priority list. You're going to find 5 clarifying questions to answer to create the successful versus stressful holiday, some time management tips, a mindset mastery, how to shift your mindset, and 4 powerful ways to say no. It's completely free. I know you're ready to slay the season. I know you want to say goodbye to the holiday overwhelm and hello to a season of joy, success, and quality time with your loved ones. So dive into the holiday toolkit now and design the holiday you've always dreamed of, because this season is not just about surviving, it's about thriving, friends. Cheers to a stress-free and successful holiday season. So for someone who's listening, who's kind of in that season, I know you were talking about finding your best yes. Like the first one was the dog. Can you walk people through what are some other steps they can do to kind of okay, it's time to take the mask off. We're not okay. It's not okay to stay that way. It's okay that you're not okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. So how did you kind of develop and figure out what your other best yeses were? And how did you say no? Because saying no is really hard. And that's something we talk about a lot on this podcast. It's just hard, because if you're used to being a people pleaser, or, we think we're mean girls if we're saying no. My audience has heard me say it 100 bazillion times, but it's kind of like when you tell your kids something, they're like, yeah. But then you could say it and it might finally click with them. So can you speak to a little bit about that? Because to say your best yes, you have to say no.
You have to say no. And to say no, it comes back to saying yes is easier. It's faking fine. It's like, yes, I will do that. Like, yes. Okay. Because if I say yes, you will stop talking. So there's an ulterior motive. Like if I say yes, you will stop convincing me that I need to say yes. And then I can hang up the phone and be on to the next thing. And I'll just add that to my list. I'm already miserable. I'll just go do it. So I think that for me, and what I would recommend is if you are resonating with this, that you let it marinate in your mind and you really think about why. What is it that's bothering you? And then literally write it down. You and I were talking about devotionals the other day because we're doing the same one. Yeah. And I do the same 100-day devotional. I'm on year 4. And
really?
Yes. And I love it because I write in the area where you can write on the right-hand side. Yeah. And I can see, I write the year and I can see how I've grown. over the years. And I'm not a journaler. So if you are, I think that's amazing. But like for me, it's a baby step. It's like, let me write down 3 little steps that I can look at later. But the first thing is recognizing it. And the second thing for me is I literally found adaptogens and probiotics and prebiotics that are specific for serotonin, dopamine, overwhelm, like all of the happy neurotransmitters, where I literally kind of changed the makeup of my microbiome and I supported my body with adaptogens. And I was able to have more mental clarity. And what it does, like what the cocktail of supplements does, is that it takes your overwhelm from a 20 and brings it down to a 15. So now you've got that 15 to 20 space to be like, do I want to do that? I'm going to tell Martine no. And I'm not going to back it up with 17 facts of how I'm busy doing something else, because that's the next thing that we do. Like we say no, but then we're like, well, let me justify to you.
Right.
Like,
and that just gives them more ammunition when we do that. It just gives them more ammunition.
Yes. Yeah. It's terrible. Like as women, I've never seen a man be like, no, I'm not doing that. And here are the 95 reasons why.
You're so right.
But like as women, we are like, have to feel justified. And I don't know if that's like the people pleasing part of our brains or what it is, but decide, like, so back to the list, it's like, decide that you're overwhelmed, recognize, admit it to yourself. Like that's the first thing, like admitting it to yourself. Like I finally recognize, like I cannot do all of this. I am faking that I'm fabulous and I'm tired of my own nonsense. Like this is not okay. Like I want to live better, want to live bigger. And then I added the supplement routine, and I literally got intentional about my calendar. Like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be like, oh, you know what? If I wake up, in time, I'm going to do my devotional. And if the sun is shining at 85 degrees, then I'm going to work out, or I'm going to XYZ. It's like, no, I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to calendar block for the things that are important to me and get them done. Yeah. And then I am going to really figure out what I want. As far as like a job, a career, like how do I want to show up in this world to give my gifts and talents to help others? Right. That is what God has called us to do. Yep. And that kind of changes the game emotionally for feeling better. Because now it's like, okay, now if you ask me to do something, I'll straight up be like, no. And I don't feel bad about it. Like if it doesn't align with what I have time for or can do. Like I found, like prior to me recognizing this, I'm a single parent in a town where I don't have family. I have plenty of friends, but like didn't have family or the person to like rely on. Like if I'm late to soccer, like who can I call? Right. And I have 3 kids in 3 sports going in 3 different directions. And I found myself taking other people's kids to where they needed to go. And I was like, what? What's happening? On what planet does this make any sense? And then I started to really realize, like, we all have the bandwidth to do different things, like the amount of energy, the bandwidth, the things that we like on our plate. It boils down to, what do you enjoy doing? Like if you want to drive around, then drive around. If you don't want to drive around, but I had like friends calling me like, oh, my husband is out of town and I just really don't have time to pick up Johnny from school. So like, would you mind? Because I know you're already there. If you just like brought him home. And I'm like, not that I have no concern for your husband not being home, but like, what is this talk track that we're on right now? Like, I'm not calling anyone like, oh, by the way, my husband is dead. Would you mind if you picked up Johnny from school? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, recognizing who you want to be and how you want to show up rather than just getting busy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we teach people how to treat us, right? Yeah. The more yeses you say, and the more times you're like that Miss Dependable. And so many of us put Miss Dependable on like a badge of honor, or we're busy as a badge of honor. And we've always been the Miss Dependable, and we know people are going to come to us. And that does make you feel good to a certain extent, but you do have to know that you have limits, because those people that keep coming, the takers, they don't have any limits. So you have to know yours as a giver. And I want to be I am Miss Dependable. I
Hmm.
want to be dependable. And if you ask me to do something, I want you to know that if I said yes, I'm going to be there.
Right.
But I can't say yes out of guilt
Hmm.
because I don't want to hurt your feelings because I know that you really need me. And going back to that best yes that's hard work.
It is hard work. It is hard work. And when the listeners are hearing us laugh about it, you may not even be there yet. Like, it's not funny to you that you can't say no. It's not funny to you that you're faking fine. And I want to be, really sensitive to that too. Like, when we joke about it, it's because we're on the other side of it. And it's not that we don't still struggle from time to time, but hopefully you'll get some hope in you today that there is life on the other side of being the people pleaser, and that you can learn this skill. Just because, I don't care if you're 50, 60 listening to this and you're still the yes girl. Tomorrow you can decide, I'm no longer going to be her, because it's not
Mm-hmm.
healthy for me, and it's not right for my kids to get the leftovers, or the grandkids to get the leftovers, or my spouse to get the leftovers. Like, they're my priority, and I need to show up well for myself, number one, and for them, second. And so I don't know, I just felt that in my spirit that someone might be listening and go, gosh, they're laughing about it and it just seems so easy for them. It takes work. Like you just
No,
said, it takes work.
no, it is. It is. And I appreciate that we've paused here for a second because it is not easy. The
Mm-hmm.
easy thing is to say yes and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And some things you might want to say yes to. And some of it, of like running around and like driving kids and doing this and doing that, might fill your bucket because that's what God's called you to do. And you
Yeah.
have the servant's heart that's where your best yes is. And
Mm-hmm.
the hard work is in recognizing your best yes and
Mm-hmm.
really realizing that God made you different than he made me, than he made the next person and the next
Yeah.
person, and recognizing for yourself, what are you saying yes to that is putting you in a state of overwhelm?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then the first step is in recognizing it. And the second step for me is literally, there's this happy juice drink that I drink every single day that like is adaptogens and probiotics and keeps me on my up and up and feeling really good so that I can be the
Mm-hmm.
doer that I want to be
Yeah.
without the overwhelm or the anxiety. And it gives me, my body and my brain, the confidence to be like, okay, let's pause before
Mm-hmm.
we open our mouths to say yes. Because often we don't take the pause. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
you asked me something, I'm just going to say yes, or I'm
Yeah.
just going to say no, or I'm just going to
Yeah.
say whatever. But like
Yeah.
having the moment of silence in the conversation, that's okay too.
And pausing and saying, you know what, I just have to get back to you on this tomorrow. Like, this
Yeah.
is what I was just writing out for some content that I'm going to be putting out in an email this week. Is there's so much power in that pause, but we've been so like conditioned to just automatically respond to people. Like, everybody wants
Yeah.
instant gratification. So like, we're always just used to saying that yes. I'm like, if you can't say no because it's too scary for you right now, just pause and just say,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm going to have to get back to you. If you just could do that, that's the
Mm-hmm.
bridge to the no. You may not feel good to say the no right now, but you can bridge and you can take baby steps to get there. And the best thing you can do is just say, I'm going to need to think about that. And you don't
Yeah.
have to even explain why you got to think about it either. So
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Or like even text messages, don't need to be responded to the second it goes off. It's like,
oh
oh my
man.
gosh,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
texted me. I better hurry up. No, that's what texting is for. Like maybe you reply tomorrow. You don't have to reply and even say, like, I'm going to think about it. I'm just going to reply tomorrow. I'm
Yeah.
going to reply. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to
Right.
reply, but I'm going to reply tomorrow. And like after you've had time to like really think about it and
Mm-hmm.
think about whether it is something that you really want to say yes to, or whether you're stuffing that beach ball down, you're going to say
Mm-hmm.
yes and it's going to come hit you in the face.
Well, and you're also resenting that yes.
Yes.
Oh, and so,
Yes.
and then sometimes you have to come back and say no. And so then you're having to have another conversation that's uncomfortable. So instead of letting your yes be yes and your no be no, you're like, yes, I'll do it. And then you have to come back and cancel. That doesn't feel good either.
No.
So it's like, just let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if it has to be a no for now, it doesn't mean no never. You're not being mean. It's just having that awareness and taking that pause. So
100%.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. It's rough. It's rough out there, mamas. We get it. And you're trying to do all the things, as mompreneurs. You're running a business and you have people asking for you to do things in the business. You have your own expectations. And then you're trying to live off the expectations of the mom maybe that you're watching next door, or maybe you're in a group and a peer group and you're seeing what they're doing in their business. And that comparison trap is so easy just to get sucked into, when really we're all in different seasons of life. A lot of us, we have all different backgrounds. There may be someone who's in your situation right now, and they've just lost somebody, and how they perform and what they do is just totally in context to them. And when they try to be you instead of being them, that's where you start burning out.
100%. And I feel like faking fine for me came out of years and years of trying to be you, like trying to be something, trying to fit my square peg into a round hole, like just trying to be like, okay, I don't necessarily. And a lot of it was that, like, I mean, I love myself, but I didn't like who I was. I didn't like being a widow. When you said widow, I was like, oh, hush. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be in this box. So let me try to figure out how I can fit into other situations that didn't serve me a purpose.
Yeah.
So I think the hope in this conversation is to help you recognize what is serving you a purpose as you're listening, and step into that one baby step at a time, because none of this, like you were saying earlier, we were giggling about it now. Yes, I'm 6 years past the place where I fully recognized that I was faking fine. Like in that moment that I recognized it, oh, for crying out loud, I was laying on the floor crying.
Right.
Like, what do I do? How do I turn this ship around? Because I am not steering it in a very good place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love this conversation, and you and I could talk for hours upon hours upon hours, and you have to come back on the show and maybe talk a little bit more about your happy juice. But what are you most excited about in life or business right now?
Oh, I really love surrounding myself with like-minded women that are on fire for Jesus and on fire for helping others in whatever that superpower is. Yeah. I'm most excited for podcasting, for conversations, and really just for the entrepreneurship of running with other women. Once you realize that there is a whole nother entrepreneur world, and there are really good people doing really great things, making really good money, it is exciting. And I feel like my eyes are fully wide open to that. And I am just excited for what God has in store.
Awesome. Well, give them a family update, because you do have a family update.
Oh, I do have I just got married. I have a family update. 10 years, like, not to the day, but 10-year time span. I feel like for anyone that is going through grief, like I definitely did the hard work on myself before I got to a place where I was like, I can even entertain having another partner. But I have 2 kiddos successfully in college, 1 left. He's a junior, and I just got married to an amazing man. And so God is good. It took, it's really different the second time around. And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother podcast. But life is good, and I am super happy, and I feel blessed. And I so appreciate having this conversation with you, Martine. Thank you so much for having me on. Yes,
no, this is so fun. And we will put links to all the things and ways. What's the best way for them to connect with you if they want to talk to you? Or
on Instagram, I'm at Miss Dana Lewis, MS Dana Lewis, or you can friend me on LinkedIn either.
Okay.
I'm on all the socials. So all of the places. I would love to be your friend. Follow me, friend me. If you do friend me on Instagram from this podcast, make sure to pop into my messages and say hi and let me know that this is how we connected. I would love to know that.
Yes. Awesome. All right, friend. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to stay connected to you. I'm so thankful for this connection we're both in a mastermind together. So the connections I make through these things, and sometimes my favorite part. Yes, I'm learning, but it's the people that I'm connecting with. So thank you so much for your time here today. And friends, we will catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.